All right, after last night's DXing adventure, you know, I basically called it off to go to bed. I wasn't real tired last night, but being in an air-conditioned room, I get a problem with my neck, and the neck started spasming. It was very uncomfortable, and I told you I hit this station, and I kept saying top of the band, but the guy kept saying top of the dial. And I'm waiting for, you're waiting for the station identification, and it was between the hour and the half hour, just enough so I could sit there for a half hour, almost a half hour of just pure music. Now it started off with the song "You Say It's Your Birthday," Beatles, "Happy Birthday to You." It was the way the Beatles went around the "Happy Birthday" song, which had royalties at the time. Well, anyway, some people say something different, but in other words, the Beatles came out with a happy birthday song. That played a bunch of other ones. And I'm like, what the hell station is this? And then I tuned to the left or to the right, whatever it is, whatever band I was on. And I noticed there's Sweet 16. I'm like, uh-oh, this is a new station. I tuned back to it. There it was. Now I know it was just before the sun went down. It was getting near 9 o'clock. And it was coming in really well, and it was fading in and out. So I'm waiting and waiting for the station ID, and it's not coming. And I like listening to oldies, but after a while, it becomes depressing because you'll hear a song and you'll realize that thing's over 50 years old. Uh, it's not all reminiscing. Sometimes, if you're not in the mood, it's depressing. So it was getting a little weird. My neck was hurting me. So I'm thinking, all I have to do tomorrow, get up, put in 1690 AM, and then put in top of the dial, and it'll pop up. So I did that, and it didn't show me what it was. And I'm like, come on, the guy must have said top of the dial 3 times. All right, so I went looking more, and on 1690, I now know that it's Maryland. There's a station down in Maryland, but there's also one in Chicago. And in one of the groups, the DX group, a bunch of people mentioned a couple years ago that they bumped into the station that night. And I never DX'd the extended band, the new band, which is above 1600. I like to get my stations uh, below 1600 because they're higher power. They're like 10,000 watts to 50,000 watts. And if you're going to pick it up during the day, it's going to be on that band. If you go in the extended band during the day, there's really nothing there but noise. So just last night I bumped into it. And I'm like, well, it's not Sweet 16. See, Sweet 16 is 1600. It's the very top of the old band. Now, some of the old pocket radios only went up to 1500. It's very confusing, when you start talking bands and frequencies and stuff like that. Now, in the United States, our AM broadcast band is 10 kilohertz wide. Now, one guy made a comment, it used to be 15. It's always been 10. And then if you go and look at Wikipedia, it explains to you that in 1989, they changed the way they allow people to modulate. When I was in tech school, teacher's up at the blackboard, and he says, our United States frequencies are 10 kilohertz wide. And he explained that other countries, they're like 8 or whatever. Well, anyway, he's explaining that. And then he makes a comment that the FCC allows some of the bigger stations, which you call a blowtorch, to modulate a little bit more than normal. And the bandwidth effectively becomes wider, as wide as 15 kilohertz. And that's because there are things called guard bands. In other words, there's always a plus and minus to everything. Well, these blowtorch stations started pumping out a little extra audio into the carrier, which then creates an effective 15 kilohertz transmitting power, which then increases the fidelity. But I want to tell you, this radio this Hallicrafter. I don't like this radio, but I'm telling you the honest truth. It has a bass setting, and when you put it on bass, you actually get bass on the AM broadcast, and it makes it sound really good. I got that 8-inch PA speaker back there, and when I was sitting listening to those stations, it was just like being in my sister's Mopar. It was a Camaro, 1968, Chevy, GM, whatever you want to call it. I believe their radios were Mopars, and I used to repair them. And most of the time, it was the output. The output speaker had dried out from the sun, and the output transistor would be fried. You'd have to change the output transistor, a fusible resistor, and the speaker as a set. Put it back in the radio. Now, I also want to go off on a little bit of a rant. My sister's car, I could never fix the radio. Every time I took the radio out, took it to the bench, it worked perfectly. Well, I now know that based on other people's radios after that, a heavy smoker, when you have the dash defroster on and you're smoking, it's pulling the smoke in, and that smoke goes through the radio, and it's acidic, and a little bit of moisture, and you get the IF, you get like silver mica disease. A little bit different, but the radio starts to crackle. If you turn the radio off and turn it back on, it's fine for a few seconds, then it starts to crackle again. And that's what was wrong with my sister's radio. And as soon as I took the radio out of the dash and laid it on the seat, it was perfect. And I put it back in, and it'd be good for 2 weeks and start doing it again. Had me going crazy. But my sister was such a heavy smoker, and guess what she died from? Heavy smoker, she died. Now this guy Ray in RCA, he had the same problem with the radio, and I couldn't figure it out. His was crackling all the time, and I just took another radio. I took the radio out of my car at one point. It was the same radio. I just gave it to him, and he was like real happy. How did you fix that? Because he took it out a few times, and I just said, yeah. I said it was like a loose wire or something. Well, at the time I told him, but in other words, when the stations overmodulate a little bit, the fidelity goes up, the bandwidth gets wider, and the FCC was looking the other way. That's what the instructor was saying. He says basically the FCC looks the other way, and but you get more fidelity, because at that time in our area, it was WABC was the #1 AM station. They played everything. It was a top 40, top 50, whatever it was back in those days. They would play everything from show tunes in New York to the Beatles. They played everything. And when you had it on at work, nobody complained, because, you know, if it was a Beatles song or a Beach Boys song, they would only have to wait to the next song, and it would be Hello, Dolly from the play. I can actually remember some of the songs that he used to play. And then sometimes there would be, it wasn't My Ding-a-Ling. You Can't Roller Skate in a Buffalo Herd. Roger something? Roger Williams? Roger? Anyway. Trailers for sale or rent. Rooms to rent 50s. Man, it means King of the Road song would play. So in other words, you have WABC on, and you have the Beatles, you have the Rolling Stones, and then you have this guy, Robert. I should remember his name, but you know, I'm going senile. And now that song's playing, King of the Road's playing. And if you watch Ed Sullivan, same thing. Ed Sullivan would have the Beach Boys on, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, but he would also have the old acts on. So you're sitting there as a little kid, and your grandmother's watching her juggling act or snake act, or the guy spinning the plates. Remember the guy spinning the plates? She's watching that. Next thing comes on, the Rolling Stones come out and they sing a song and piss Ed Sullivan off. Let's spend the night together. And it was supposed to be, they were supposed to sing Let's Spend Some Time Together. Big brouhaha. But anyway, so you had Ed Sullivan, that was variety, and you had the ABC, which was basically variety. Now, Howard Stern used to make fun of WABC years later. He says, I don't know how that thing stayed on the air. Well, I do. I understand. Variety is the spice of life. This woman in McGraw Edison, West Orange, not West Orange, in Florida, before I moved it back, she said to me, "Variety is the spice of life." There was a story involved to it, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand variety is the spice of life. In other words, when you're eating different foods, you put spices on it, and it makes it a little better. And variety, when you change things, is the spice of life itself. And what it was is this one guy, this one guy took the woman in the bearing room, and when she come back out, her shirt was inside out. And someone said something to her. She says, "Variety is the spice of life." So she went in the bearing room, and her first name was Gay, and Gary Rupchuck was the guy. Yeah, there's a name that just rolls off the tongue. I wonder if Gary Rupchuck is still alive. I could tell you a million stories about Gary Rupchuck. But in other words, uh, the AM broadcast band, there were people, pumping it up a little bit to get a little more fidelity. But last night, I had this radio. Now, I know this radio has good AM. If you read up on the Hallicrafters SX42, you'll see people say outstanding audio. Now, first of all, it's a push-pull audio output, and that gives you less distortion. It gives you more oomph, but you have to have, I think there's two different transformers, an interstage output. It makes the radio more expensive. Well, that's what they did with this radio. And I'm telling you, on the dial, when you go between um, not Wi-Fi, hi-fi and bass, you actually hear the difference when this radio is playing a song on AM broadcast. You hear the bass it comes up. And like I said, I was sitting there last night, I'm going, this is really good. Meanwhile, the neck is aching. The guy keeps saying the top of the dial, the top of the dial, top of the dial. I'm like, no problem. Tomorrow I'll look up 1690, top of the dial. That'll tell me who it was. No. So it was either Maryland or Chicago. And according to different groups, different people around the country were picking up the Chicago station on 1690. Well, like I said, I never bumped into it before because that's chainsaw outside or someone weed whacking. I, I hate doing videos when there's something distracting me. But anyway, I just wanted to show you this radio, and I'm warning you, go look at my videos, how I suffered on this thing, and look at what I'm doing when I'm doing those IF cans. And if you're rebuilding one of them IF cans and you break one of those little wires, where are you going to get that IF can? Where are you going to get the replacement coil for that IF can? That's why when I was doing this, I did like a different, a separate IF can each day. And because there's a 455 and a 10.7 in each one of the cans. And I believe there's four doodle sticks or slugs. There's four coils on each IF can. I showed you the inside, but there's the IF cans down there, and you can see one of these is 455, and there's one on the bottom, and one of these is 10.7, and there's another one on the bottom. But I have to give this radio say it's one of the best as far as AMDXing. The sound quality is incredible. And then when you're on the second band, there's two RF tubes that are on. And that's what you really want. You want to bring the RF up slowly. You don't want to bring it up with just one RF tube. And then when you have two RF tubes, there's another set of coils in there. And it's the way to fly. But I hated this radio when I was working on it so much that when I got it all working, I'll put it in the other room. I couldn't get this thing off the bench quick enough because there were so many things. When the guy took pictures of it, he made sure he didn't show me that the case is missing. The guy was really a shyster. And I have never had any really good luck except for a BC 348. A guy, he sent me a different one than what was in the pictures. He claimed when he opened it up, he saw that the dynamotor was dented. And so he sent me a different unit. I don't know if he pulled a quick one on me. I went on to recap that radio. That radio works really good. What's wrong with a BC348 is it has a no AM broadcast band. On the first band, it does the top of the AM and the new band, but it doesn't do the full AM broadcast band, where this one does. That Collins radio, it uses 3 different oscillators to be able to do the AM broadcast band conversions. It converts the AM band 3 times. It's got no sensitivity. There's another one out in the other room. The National NC173 is pretty good. All right, it's not the greatest. Next to this one, it's not as good. All right, but it was less money, and that's what you have to decide. You know, what did it cost when it was made? And you know, I'm warning you about the IF cans on this radio. They were made to be disposable. You know, if it went bad, you just took it out, put another one in there. And other brands, there's terminals in there, and you can unsolder the capacitors, and the terminals will still hold the real fine wires. So you can change the capacitors that go bad and put a new one in, solder it in, you're done. Where the Hallicrafters on this model, they actually mount the capacitor's body with a piece of metal. Now I put a piece of rubber tubing from a tire, a bicycle tire, around the capacitor, then squeezed in the little tab which held the capacitor, and then I soldered the wires to the capacitor. Go look at the video. I really put the work into it, and the whole time I'm like, you know, this radio sucks. It's really hard. I get it all done, and it's on. I got everything fixed that was screwed up by the guy, and then I go to the right. I'm moving the dial, and it's running really smooth. And I hear the stations going by. I go to go back, and it won't go back. I'm like, oh, I screwed up something. Piece of solder got down in there. I look down there, and I see a split in the gear. Go look at the video on how I fixed the gear. Who the hell's mowing their lawn? I'm doing mine Wednesday. I mow the lawn every 10 days. I hate it when someone mows twice in 1 week. They make me crazy. But I think it's going to rain next week. That's why they're mowing today. It's too hot out there. I'm not mowing. That's where I'm at. I'm like, you know what? I'm retired. I tell people that. I'm retired. I got enough of this nonsense. I was over talking to one of the neighbors, and his girlfriend's out there. You know, they've been together a while, and she's to the point now where she comes out. She didn't even say hello to me. She's just ragging on him. And I think about that. But anyway, I say to myself, you know, sometimes you feel lonely. You wish you did have a wife, but watch what actually the dynamics of some of the women, how mean they are to their husbands. You know, men get a little bit feeble. You know, they just want to sit and stare. They don't let them. They just always got something else. Watch Bill Barr. He's got that whole story. Women have all this energy. Go watch that one. They always have something they want to do. Let's have a picnic. Is that past us? Go watch it. You'll laugh your ass off. All right. I just want to tell you, basically, someone made a comment. It's still 10 kilohertz wide. It's always been 10 kilohertz. But back until 1989, the FCC sort of looked the other way and let people overmodulate. That's according to my instructor. They mentioned 1989. The FCC come down with the amount of modulation. Percentage, I guess it's percentage of modulation. But I'm telling you, this thing got great sound. And I was sitting there, and I was in the zone. My neck was hurting. I'm hearing the old songs, and the guy kept saying top of the dial. I'm like, this is going to be a piece of cake. Tomorrow morning, I did. I got up the next day. I put the computer on. I put in 1690 AM, and then I put top of the dial. I put top of the band, and it shows me the 2 stations. And then I just got off a nap. I'm like, you know what I did wrong? I didn't put top of the dial, and I put top of the band. And top of the dial didn't do it. So maybe that's the new saying on that radio station. I don't know. I'll know once I know which station it is tonight. Oh, I've touched nothing on this radio. And most I did for this video was was turn it on. I'm not touching it until tonight, and hopefully that station will be back because the weather pattern is going to be identical to the weather pattern of last night. I think that's it. All right, that's it for now.